Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have with me in the studio once again Dr. Chichi Aniagolu Okoye. She's a sociologist, she's a public commentator, and we are here to discuss Nigeria at 60, Beyond Lamentations. We have been lamenting about Nigeria in the last few weeks since we celebrated just before and after celebrating our 60th anniversary. Everybody's been lamenting about where we are supposed to be that we are not. Oh, where our contemporaries, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, where they are and where we are today. I mean, to even look at the fact that 1994, Rwanda had a major genocide. That today, Nigerians are going to Rwanda for better life. If they can't go to Europe, they are looking at Rwanda for better life. Chichi, what must we do? We have to continue discussing. You have outlined in the previous segment, you talked about Nigerians need to join politics, need to join political parties so that they can build the country that we desire. We can't leave it for professional politicians, Nigerian professionals, intellectuals, corporate executives. We must join politics, not because we want to run for office, but so that the policies that will emerge from politics will be for the good of everyone. What else? You know.
Father, again, sorry, I need to do this. There is something that Nigerians do all the time that I need to say that we have to stop doing. We are constantly cursing this country, constantly. Where 2 or 3 Nigerians are gathered, there is a curse for Nigeria. And as long as we keep cursing the country
cannot make progress.
The country will be, there's a spiritual...
Stop cursing your fatherland, your motherland.
There is a spiritual angle to all this. You know, we know it as, you know, as Christians, we now know it for ourselves that we should speak, you know, blessings and positivity for ourselves. But we don't do it when it comes to Nigeria. So all we do is tell this useless country, this whatever. And what you say begets.
Yes.
We give birth to we are constantly giving birth to the country that we don't want with the things that we say. So I think that the least any Nigerian can do is to say thank you, God, for this beautiful country. Thank you that favor is coming to this country. Thank you that you're going to be giving us a new leader, you know, who has the ideas and who has the passion and who has the goodness inside of him or her, you know, to make a difference for us. We need to start blessing this country
and calling blessings on our country.
Exactly. As we do it for our individual lives, we do it for our country. That's extremely important for the spiritual dimension, you know, for us to be able to release the blessings, because we can't do anything in this world. You know, prayer is really what we need to be able to change the circumstances of our life. And we have to start blessing and praying for Nigeria. So that's another foundation I think it's important for us to lay. In terms of the next thing that we need to do, Father, we need to really begin to believe that change is possible.
Change is possible. We need to believe it.
If we don't believe it, it is never going to happen. We need to believe.
Believe our journey towards a new Nigeria by believing that change is possible. No matter how deplorable where we are, change is possible.
Yes. And it is from that belief that change is possible that everything else flows. Will flow. You know, if you don't believe that you're going to pass an exam, you most likely will fail it.
Sure.
Even if that exam is simple, but you come with a blocked mindset. So that's what we need to do. We need to start giving ourselves a chance to take risks.
Give ourselves a chance to take risks.
And when I say take risks, I'm talking about, again, back to our political. Most people in Nigeria want change, but we're afraid of change.
We are not ready to invest.
No, we're not ready to take risks. So when we come to at our state level, you want to elect a governor, what immediately happens? Oh, he has to come from my zone. He has to come. We forget that what we actually want
is a change.
Is change. And that we actually want, and to be able to have change, you need to have somebody who can drive that change.
And who may be completely different.
Completely different, completely.
From what we are used to.
Exactly. But then we go right back to our atavistic nature. we need to give ourselves the chance to change.
Let me just distract you a little there. A few days ago, I was watching TV, one of these channels, and the anchor person said to the person he was about to interview, who is going in campaigning for an office, and he said, but you have no experience. And the person says, look, I have worked in the corporate world, I have worked briefly in the civil service and the corporate world, I've led this, I've led it. So you have no experience in politics. I had to send a text to the anchor person, and I said, we say we want change in Nigeria, and you people keep talking about somebody has no experience. Experience in what kind of politics? You keep calling for experience in the same wrong kind of politics that have kept us where we are. That if you are talking of change, you need a new class of politicians, a new class of people to come. I said to him, I said, look, we are talking of a knocking engine. What do you need? A mechanic, not a professional
an engineer.
Yes. You need a mechanic that can fix this car. And if it is a mechanic that can fix a knocking engine, you won't ask where does the mechanic come from. You won't ask the religion of the mechanic. I say Nigerians need to start moving and not do things as we used to. I mean, it's not Einstein who says that if the kind of thinking that created a problem, you cannot use that same kind of thinking to solve the problem. You have to change. You have to take the risk to do things differently.
And that for me is at the core of it, because many of us, we just do the same things. And in our own individual lives, we know that if you're doing the same thing, you're going to get exactly the same results. So are we going to take the risk and say, can we try a woman? Can we try somebody who is disabled? Can we try somebody who does not come from our clan? Can we try something? Can we actually just say, who is the best man or the best woman for our state, for our...
And take the risk for 4 years.
And take the risk. And take the risk. That's what many countries have done. That's how Obama became president of America. If people didn't say, we've tried all these things, let's try something new. I remember when I lived in Ireland and a Nigerian became a councillor, And when you ask the people, why did you vote for this guy? This was Ireland that hardly had any black people.
Yes.
And they said, well, this guy, he seems very committed, very dedicated.
Very dynamic.
Let's try, we want something different from our community. Let's try this guy who comes from elsewhere. Maybe he's the one who's going to be able to make a difference. This is what you do.
This is what progressive
exactly. When you want something different. So when you're from the north of Nigeria and you're dying of poverty, but every time
it comes to
election, you're going to throw up exactly the same type of people because you said they're one of us. But for 60 years, there's been no difference in your life. On the contrary, your life has gotten worse. When you're from the south of Nigeria and a leader, and it is the turn of the South, all you're thinking about is, it has to be somebody from the South. You don't care what their background is, whatever it is. And yet, every state, Father, is ruled by somebody from that state. What difference has it made? Every state in Nigeria is poorer today than it ever was.
Our problem, as I said, is a thinking problem. In the WhatsApp group we belong to, I said, our problem is a thinking problem. Good thinking, good product. So the majority of Nigerians, when it comes to elections to offices, appointment to offices, people are saying, from my village. So if it is a state appointment, then I'm concerned that the person is from my village. If it is a national appointment, yes, spread things around. That is very, very important, and it is not happening enough. But that we really need to recognize that what we need today are technicians and mechanics to fix this country. And for once, we need to close our eyes, and when we see the best person from anywhere, let's go for him. Let's go for her. And if it's a handicapped person, let's go for her.
Sometimes there are people who have ruled this country or states that I say, my goodness, I wish there was a chance that I could take this person to become the governor of my state, because at the end of the day, somebody who's good is good. Somebody who is excellent.
Is excellent.
Put him or her anywhere. They are going to do exactly because they are propelled by their excellence.
Because they say how you do one thing is how you do all things.
Exactly. You know, so the fact that you say, oh, let me get somebody from my village or get it, and yet the person has no excellence. Even if they want to do good, they don't know how.
They don't know how.
They don't know how. So that's the risk we need to take. And again, Father, I need to say, this again, that it is extremely important that we begin to look at our building a grassroots momentum. And it's not something that we need a political party or whatever to do. There's so many groups of people, churches, people are members of one thing or the other. How are we politically enlightening the people who are in our group? How are we getting people to think and act, and talk differently? How are we able to do that? We have school groups, alma maters of schools. What are we doing in our own little circle to change the dialogue?
We may need to learn something from Latin America, from Paulo Freire's conscientization mechanisms. In Latin America, the revolution that happened in Latin America with their politics, military rule and politics and so on and so forth, came about with education. A particular kind of education called, conscientization. And they met at grassroots, kindreds, in churches, in village circles, in communities, and kept enlightening one another, the kind of things we are saying now, until it built up for them to be able to change the structure of political power. So we definitely, and thanks to technology, we have a lot of WhatsApp groups, Facebook, all kinds of things. People are linked in more ways than they used to be linked. Indeed. 10 years, 20 years ago. How do we use this? This is now the challenge. And people out there, must have more ideas to give as to how we organize. Enough of complaining. Go and organize.
Yes, and organize at your own level. Yes. You don't have to have, like you said, you have a WhatsApp group. Become the voice of that WhatsApp group. When people start with their ethnic bigotry and start all this nonsense, be the one to say, what difference has it made, that the governor of my state comes from my state? What difference has it made to my state? Nothing. Nothing has changed. On the contrary, many states have gotten worse and continue to get worse. And so, if we begin to, like you said, if we begin to think differently and then it will begin to affect the way we act.
We do things.
And also, this whole, just go back further to the primitive accumulation, because at the end of the day, everything that we do is because we think, okay, if somebody from my village is the governor or the president or whatever, then the chances are that I will get appointed into a position, So at the end of the day, it's not really about whether I want to fix Nigeria.
No.
It's because I want, that leverage, because I will personally.
So a lot of it's our turn.
Exactly.
Is because of, so that I may
benefit, because the rank and file of the people who come from there don't make any difference. Don't benefit anything.
As you said before, if Nigeria is fixed, we all benefit.
Of course.
How have we gotten into the idea of just me and my family benefiting?
Yeah.
Tell us about this primitive accumulation.
And the thing is, Father, if we actually think about it, what are we accumulating all this money for? Because we want to be able to take care of ourselves, we want power, we want privilege,
and we want our children's children to have welfare.
Money. But if you think about it, Father, so many people who have done the same thing have ended up not achieving what they had thought. Even for the people who necessarily earned their money legitimately. So you look at people who are big business tycoons, how their families are completely in disarray, fighting over their money. That money did not do what it was meant to do.
Instead, it destroyed the family.
It destroyed the family. And then you look at the houses. You build these beautiful, fantastic houses, and you say, I'm building it so that my children can inherit this afterwards. Go and look at the houses that were built in the 60s. They were the best houses then. Most kids don't want to live in their house that. Those houses are decrepit, if you really think about it.
Yes.
So what it is that you're preserving today as something that is, a legacy for your children, they're not going to want it.
You shared something with us somewhere about slave trade and the kind of what was wealth that attracted 100 human beings. A white man brought a small piece of red cloth, and an African chief was ready to give 10 slaves in order to get that red piece of cloth. A white man brought a mirror, and an African chief was ready to give 20 slaves. But what you said to us, what is a mirror today?
It's in the same way that if you look at people who are accumulating G-Wagon, this and, all sorts of material things that will mean nothing. I'm a firm believer that in the next 20, 30 years,
all these cars,
we will all be flying. Everybody will have a flying object. And all these cars and everything will just be monuments. You shared with me the picture of Wafo Rizu's vehicles.
Yes.
That are all
they
broken.
were all classy vehicles in the 1961-62 time, but today, who wants those?
Exactly.
They are rotting away.
And at the end of and that's why for me we need to keep talking more to our leaders, because what it is that you fear will come to you if Nigeria doesn't exist. We're even talking about in terms of the material wealth, Father. What about the children that are being lost every day? The same children that you are talking about, that you're doing this for. You are happy to say, oh, I'm sending off my child to England, to America, to go and study. The child is, now people are sending children primary school.
But to boarding schools.
To England. By the time that child comes, he's a complete stranger to you. That child does not have the same values, has no interest. When the child comes home and says, oh, I'm going to marry a foreigner, you start crying. But you put the child in a foreign land.
Yes.
And then you don't want the child to marry the foreigner in the foreign land that you had told the child was better than their own. These kids end up being completely different. I was watching, there's a Nigerian who's made, who's a musician and made such a, is really trending at the moment. I was looking at this guy, I'm like, my God, this guy is Nigerian. He had, he looked like any African-American gangster with gold-plated teeth, with his, I'm like, my goodness, how old are the parents of this kid?
Boy or something?
No, this is a Nigerian. He's not, he doesn't live in Nigeria. He lives in LA, and the rest of it, I don't want to mention names, but I just, I'm looking at this kid and say, my God, can this kid relate to his parents? I'm not that traditional. I can't relate to this kid.
Not to talk of the traditional.
Exactly. And I'm like, this is happening to so many people. People are losing their children. They're losing their families. And they think this is, even just the distance, Father, even the fact that you have a child and for 17, 18 years of that child's life, you are not there.
We have lost the child.
It is part of this, it is a new type of slavery, even for you who is rich. You've sent your child away for 20, 30 years. The loneliness, the agony, this child lives among strangers, might be facing racism, all sorts of things. And for what? Because you don't want to fix schools in Nigeria. Because you want to take all that money to send that child to a place of misery for them. And you're very proud of it. Very proud. Oh, my child is in Harvard. Oh, my child is here. My child is here.
I said those of us who are priests, and many priests and counselors can attest to this. What we hear, some of them we hear about a lot of these young people. I tell my colleagues, say, look, all these big people that will run around us or run around in this country, have you asked where are their children? On Sunday morning, have you asked whether their children went to church? Or whether their children believe in God at all? What for us what for the parents are fundamental values, non-negotiable. Many of the children don't share in those values. Just as you saw the one you are describing, the external, whatever, internally, there are those issues also. What does this person consider meaningful in life? What is purpose or lack of sense of purpose in life? So as we send our children away at the most critical time in life, when they need us, when they need our mentoring, we send them away. We have lost many of them. And all because we did not fix the institutions in this country, the health institutions, the educational infrastructure, we did not fix them, but we have taken care of ourselves. And if only people recognize the importance of blooming where you are planted. We found ourselves here, and we're supposed to bloom here. Bloom where you are planted, but invest in the environment where you are planted so that you may bloom. And stop complaining, because a lot of the people who complain the most, maybe people who have gathered the most in terms of money to take care of their own personal things, but they complain about Nigeria.
And Father, what about the sense of shame? You know, every time I come on your program, I talk about shame because it is so important. How is it that the people who are in these positions are not embarrassed that you are a president or you are some high office holder and you go to another country for their health care? Aren't you ashamed? Isn't it embarrassing? Isn't it embarrassing that, because the people are going to be looking at you and thinking, but don't you have the authority to, I mean, what are you doing here?
Can't you go to the best hospital in your own
Exactly.
country?
What are you doing here? I mean, isn't it an embarrassment that you are in charge of a whole country or a whole state or whatever, and you get on a plane, and you may not even be going to the most expensive hospital. You know, it would just be a regular hospital that regular people from that place, you know, go to. Isn't there that?
With a risk of dying outside. You know, I mean, one of the things that our people prize the most is dying in their home. Traditionally.
Yeah.
I mean, what our people prize the most is that they die in their village, in their home, and so on and so forth. But we don't seem to care about that anymore. It's a real shame. I mean, the sense of shame, I think, is going away. You said something. We need to believe that change is possible. We need to believe in the country God gave us. It has been badly run. We don't believe in the manner in which it has been run, definitely. But we need to believe that we can fix this country and that nobody is going to fix it for us. It is we. And you did mention the middle class. I think it is the middle class that has failed, and the middle class must retrace its steps. Why? Because we have had the privilege of good education. We have the privilege of maybe some means in terms of work and money and so on and so forth. We must invest our talents in building our environment. Because, as you said, if our environment is poor, we are the poorer for it. We cannot be rich in a poor environment. It's not possible.
And Father, I just want to say, you know, in 1960, the British didn't leave Nigeria happily. They reluctantly left this country.
Because they saw it as a beautiful place.
They saw it as a beautiful place. They saw the resources, the riches of this country. And they said to us, and the excuse they gave for about 5 or 6 years, or even 10 years, before we eventually got independent, oh, you can't rule yourselves. Oh, you know, black people can't rule themselves. Black people can't do this. And 60 years later,
we are proving them right. What a shame.
Indeed. And we have a people who have all that it takes to be able to do that. And yet it is okay for us to tell our colonizer, you were right, 60 years after.
We will end on this note. The painful thing is that each one seems to be blaming some amorphous Nigeria. But isn't it time for us to begin to name and shame? Meaning, there have been people who have been responsible at each point. We don't have railway, we don't have light rails in the cities of Lagos, in the cities of Abuja, and there are people who are responsible. Can't we name them? Because, I mean, I am not as responsible as some of the other guys. So isn't it time for us to begin to name people who have put us here? At every point, somebody made the wrong decision. Somebody took the wrong turn. Somebody collected bribe from some foreign investor and shortchanged Nigeria. Shouldn't we have a a register of shame, you know, and begin to recognize that this person did this wrong thing that led us here. This person did this wrong thing that made us poorer.
But who's going to do it, Father? Because it's the same people who did it, who end up in the political parties, who end up becoming elected, you know, and who perpetuate themselves. And that's why regular folk, you know, who don't have political ambition, who just want to fix this country, need to join those political parties. Because it's only when you throw up the right person
that they will now
say, well, where is this money? What happened to this? But if you throw up the same person who is of the same hue, he's not going to, because he has more skeletons in his cupboard than the person that he's pointing fingers at.
On this note, we'll end this then, that one of the challenges we are throwing to Nigerians is that just as we build up the register of fame, we need to build up a register of shame. People who at one point or the other, I am told that there should have been light rails running crossing Lagos when Nigeria had a lot of money to build it. It was somebody who decided that it shouldn't happen. Abuja was well planned. The Aguda panel planned Abuja to be the most beautiful city in the world. So if the landscape is becoming so destroyed, who took certain decisions to make Abuja the place is there and is becoming an urban slum? We need to begin to identify people who took the wrong turn, who made the wrong decisions. This is one of the things we need to do moving forward, right? God bless you.
Thank you,
I've been speaking with Dr. Chichi Aniagolu Okoye, sociologist and public commentator on these issues. It's always wonderful to have you on the studio.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.